My name is Suzanne Herco. I teach Humanities 11 at Gateway High School, which is a charter school in San Francisco, California. Our humanities program is an integrated study of U.S. literature and history. I think reading instruction is appropriate for all ages. As we learn and as we develop, we constantly benefit from increased understanding of how we learn. And reading instruction is all about learning how you learn. It's all about learning how to make sense of new things. The more you understand how you make sense of things in reading, the better reader you can be.
So Nick, what happened?
Alright, so he like moved, I guess. He left the country, met some friends, got a dog.
Reciprocal teaching is a way of having students co-construct understanding of difficult text. It models the things that good readers do as they read. So they read, they summarize, and they try to make sense and understand of the reading. They question themselves about what they've read, and they predict what's going to go on next. And what reciprocal teaching does is it takes those kind of natural instincts that good readers do, and it makes them explicit through students having designated roles in the reciprocal teaching process. We have one student read, we have one student summarize, one student questions, one student predicts. And we rotate through those roles as a group of 3 or 4 students then co-construct their understanding of the text.
Being over again with the summer.
So basically what this summarizes, like, he was basically walking along lonely one day, and some man came up to him and kind of, gave him,
I've chosen Gatsby as part of our curriculum to teaching the reciprocal teaching because even my best readers in the class, even though they might be able to understand the basics of it, they really benefit from spending additional time and the insights of other people as they do it. So I think it's really important that there be a text that's complex enough so that there are lots of different entry levels for students.
Because, how he's giving them directions, he fails.
Yeah, so lonely starting
So what do you
to change.
predict, Sydney?
I'm not the predictor, that's her job.
Oh.
I predict that something changes. Like his life is going to start to turn around for him.
It's our first day reading the book. We had done a lot of pre-reading activities with them, kind of schema building activities in terms of ideas and themes. So they were kind of prepared conceptually to enter the book, but we had not yet read it together. And so what we saw today was their really initial attempt to make sense of Fitzgerald and his writing.
Based on the cover with like the city at night and it has a lot of lights on, I said that there'd be like a lot of nightlife.
My role as a teacher in reciprocal teaching is to build students to independence in utilizing these metacognitive processes in their reading. We start it by modeling what it looks like. We move it to having them practice it on their own with monitoring and then practicing it to independence. It's called a kind of a reading apprenticeship model in the sense that all along I'm helping them to understand how to do it, cheering them on, giving them positive feedback, giving them some suggestions on how to do it better, and then at some point they can do it on their own. We do some direct teaching around each of the roles. I think the only role that is particularly difficult for students to encounter is the summary role. Most of that I kind of front load in the fall by doing lessons around summary, and we do that mostly around expository text. We talk about finding the main idea and how to kind of glean the main idea from something. We use sentence stems, and I've given students some sentence stems for what the main idea might be in a particular paragraph. And then we just practice it a lot and give them feedback on it. It's really all about them practicing it again and again. It's also about, I think, students understanding how to summarize in a bunch of different texts. Text can't be too hard, it can't be too easy. If it's something that's way too hard for them, they can't even begin to summarize.
You're talking about Daisy and her husband, and basically how they were, her family's wealthy, her husband's family's wealthy, and how he left Chicago, and just basically just their life story.
So when students first start reciprocal teaching, I think there are a lot of both kind of cultural and personal roadblocks that can inhibit their embracing it. I think on the cultural level, it really involves students putting themselves out there in the classroom, and if students are not such good readers, they feel very insecure about participating fully in it. And so I think one of the first struggles struggles is creating a comfortable climate in the classroom so that students can really take those risks and make mistakes and feel okay with it and move on and get better. I think on the personal level also, because they're struggling with perhaps insecurity, they don't necessarily want to embrace this new thing because it feels like maybe it's too forced or it's something that they're not going to be able to do. And so I've experienced resistance from students that they don't want to try it out. They're kind of scared to put themselves on the line. So I think the biggest struggle is really developing student buy-in into it. And I think that one of the ways that you do that is by really being explicit about how these are things that good readers do, and as good readers we can always find texts that we find challenging. And what we need to do is just be prepared to meet those challenges.
I drove over to East Egg to see the two old friends who I scarcely knew at all. Actually, I think we should stop there.
Alright, well, I went to go play some football. Can I actually read it again? You read pretty fast. I'm not gonna lie.
Alright.
That's a great idea.
Why they came east, I don't know.
One thing I noticed is that students become much more aware of their processes as readers. They start saying things like, oh, I really need to reread this, which sometimes would seem like obvious to a teacher, but isn't necessarily obvious to a student. Oftentimes students have this idea that you read something and either you get it or you don't get it. So I see them being more metacognitive in understanding what they need to do in order to make sense of stuff. I see them also gaining more confidence in terms of their ability to approach difficult text, so that by the time we get to the spring, students are doing much more independent reading of difficult texts, and they're less intimidated by it because they kind of feel like, hey, I've conquered, this text, and I've done that, and I can do this other one as well.
Yeah, and that I predict I think he's gonna have an argument with Tom because they both love the same kind of, they both like Daisy.
He will fight for his love. Okay.